Okay, so we're diving into business data analytics.
Yeah, BDA.
BDA, get ready for some aha moments. We're going to be unpacking materials from a BDA exam prep course.
Oh, wow.
And trust me, it is way more interesting than it sounds. Have you ever wondered how companies use data to make those decisions that seem to know what you want before you even do? Or how we even got to this point where business intelligence is a thing? We're going to trace that journey, and you might be surprised to learn that it goes all the way back to 1865.
Wow, 18.
1865, long before computers even existed.
Yeah, that's fascinating how the seeds of business intelligence were planted way back then. In 1865, an author named Richard Miller Devins wrote about the importance of understanding political issues and markets for achieving business success.
Hmm.
It really highlights a timeless truth.
Absolutely. To thrive in any era, businesses need to understand the forces at play. Back then, it was about politics and markets. Today, it's about data. But what really changed the game was the invention of the hard drive by IBM in 1956.
Yeah, the hard drive.
This wasn't just a technological leap. It fundamentally changed how businesses could store and use data, setting the stage for the data explosion we see today.
And just a couple of years later, in 1958, the term business intelligence was officially coined. This marked a pivotal shift from relying on paper-based data to harnessing the power of computers for analysis and decision-making.
Then in the 1970s and 80s, we saw the rise of decision support systems, or DSS. It was a move away from just focusing on day-to-day operations and towards using data to inform those big decisions. Instead of just recording what happened, businesses started to realize they could use data to shape what could happen in the future.
That's a great point. It was a real turning point in how businesses viewed data, wouldn't you say?
Definitely. And in 1989, a Gartner analyst named Howard Dressner broadened the definition of business intelligence, even further emphasizing that it wasn't just about the technology itself, but about the ability to actually use data to inform and improve those business decisions.
This shift in focus is crucial because it moves us from simply collecting data to understanding its implications and then using those insights to drive action.
Now, during the 1990s, Business Intelligence 1.0 emerged with the development of data warehouses and a growing emphasis on data visualization. Think about it, instead of drowning in spreadsheets, businesses could now present data in a way that was easier to understand. Clear charts and graphs could convey complex information, leading to better decisions.
It's like the difference between reading a dense textbook and watching an engaging documentary, right? Visualizing data brought business intelligence to life.
Exactly. But things got even more interesting for all of us in the 2000s, with Business Intelligence 2.0, driven by the internet, cloud computing, and those mobile devices we can't seem to live without data, became more accessible than ever before. Have you ever wondered how you get those eerily accurate product recommendations online? That's BI 2.0 at work.
It's all around us, shaping our online experiences and influencing our buying decisions in ways we might not even realize.
And today, business intelligence is evolving yet again, with a major focus on analytics. Companies are now using advanced statistics and powerful algorithms to unlock even deeper insights from all that data. It's no longer enough to simply describe what happened in the past. Businesses want to predict future trends, identify potential risks, and optimize their operations. And that's where business data analytics really comes into play.
It's amazing how far we've come, but to really grasp how it works, we need to understand the BDA cycle. It acts as a sort of scientific method for businesses, guiding them through the process of using data effectively. It all starts with identifying the right research questions. Think of it like setting off on a journey. You need to know your destination before you can map out the route.
So before diving into a sea of data, you need to know what you're looking for. What problems are you trying to solve? What opportunities are you hoping to uncover?
Precisely. And once you have those questions clearly defined, the next step is sourcing your data. It's about carefully selecting the right sources to provide the answers you seek. And that's where tools like the business model canvas can be helpful. It's a visual template that helps you map out all the key components of your business so you can identify the data points that are most relevant to your goals.
So a business model canvas helps you see the big picture of your business and then pinpoint the data you need to make those smart decisions.
That's a great way to put it. It's about choosing quality over quantity. The most relevant data isn't always the biggest data set.
Okay, so we've identified our research questions and we've carefully chosen our data sources. Now things get really interesting, right? It's time to analyze the data.
This is where the real magic happens. There are so many techniques analysts can use, from simple regressions to complex forecasting models, all with the goal of uncovering those hidden patterns and relationships within the data that would be impossible to spot with the naked eye.
So it's like having a superpower that lets you see the unseen connections within the data. Tell me more about those regressions and forecasting models.
Well, imagine you're trying to predict house prices. You could use a technique called regression analysis to see how factors like the size of the house and its location relate to its price. It's like drawing a line through a scatter plot of data points, helping us see trends and make predictions. And forecasting models take this a step further using historical data to predict future trends, like how many widgets a company might sell next quarter. It's about taking what we know and using it to make educated guesses about what might happen next.
Wow, that's incredibly powerful. But analyzing the data is just one piece of the puzzle, right? What happens next in the BDA cycle?
The next crucial step is to interpret and report those results in a way that's clear and actionable. It's not enough to just have the answers you need to communicate them effectively to the decision makers.
It's like translating a secret code into a language everyone can understand, right?
Exactly. This often involves transforming complex statistical findings into plain language and using visuals like charts and graphs to highlight the key takeaways. Remember, the goal is to use these insights to influence decision-making. Data without action is just noise.
So you've got the data, you've analyzed it, and you've presented your findings in a way that everyone can understand what happens next in this data-driven journey.
Well, that's why we move from theory to practice. The next step in the BDA cycle is all about using those results to influence business decision-making. It's about turning data insights into tangible results that move the business forward.
So it's not just about understanding the data, it's about using it to develop better strategies and achieve better outcomes.
Precisely. And ultimately, it's about guiding organization-level strategy. It's about creating a culture where data-driven decision-making is woven into the fabric of the company.
It sounds like a pretty big shift for some organizations.
It can be, but the companies that embrace this data-driven mindset tend to have a significant competitive edge in today's world.
Okay, so we've traced the evolution of business intelligence from its early beginnings to the power of business data analytics today. We've even touched on the first few steps of the BDA cycle. What are your thoughts on this journey so far? What stands out to you most about how businesses are harnessing data for success? It's incredible how we've gone from simply recording data to actively using it to shape the future of businesses. But I'm curious, you mentioned different types of analytics: descriptive, predictive, and prescriptive. It almost sounds like we're traveling through time with data. Can you break those down a bit further?
That's a fantastic analogy. Think of descriptive analytics as looking through the rearview mirror. It helps us understand past and present performance by answering questions like, what happened? Or how did we perform last quarter? We're essentially using data to tell a story about what has already occurred.
So it's about understanding the what and when of past events, like figuring out which products sold best last month, or identifying trends in customer behavior over time. That makes sense. What about predictive analytics? Does that mean we can actually see into the future?
Well, not exactly see the future, but we can get pretty close. Predictive analytics is all about using past data to forecast future trends. It's like asking, based on what's happened before, what might happen next? For example, a company might use predictive analytics to estimate sales for the next year, or predict which customers are most likely to switch to a competitor. It's all about making educated guesses based on patterns and trends.
Wow, that's really powerful. It's like having a data-powered crystal ball, but hopefully it's a bit more accurate than those fortune-telling booths at the carnival. Okay, so we have descriptive analytics looking at the past and predictive analytics giving us a glimpse into the future. What about prescriptive analytics? What's that all about?
Prescriptive analytics is where we move from insights to action. It's not just about predicting what might happen, it's about suggesting the best course of action to achieve a specific goal. Imagine a company wants to optimize its delivery routes to save time and fuel. They could use prescriptive analytics to analyze data on traffic patterns, delivery locations, and driver availability to figure out the most efficient routes.
So it's like having a data-powered GPS for business decisions guiding you toward the best possible outcome. I'm starting to see how these different types of analytics build on each other, but how do they actually connect to the BDA cycle we talked about earlier?
Each type of analytics plays a critical role in different stages of the BDA cycle. For instance, when identifying research questions, descriptive analytics can help paint a clear picture of the current situation and identify areas for improvement.
So if a company is struggling with declining sales, they might use descriptive analytics to analyze past sales data, pinpoint when the decline started, and identify any potential contributing factors.
Exactly. And once you have a solid understanding of the problem, you might use predictive analytics to forecast future sales trends under different scenarios. Then you could utilize prescriptive analytics to identify the most effective strategies to boost sales based on those predictions.
This is where those different statistical techniques come into play, right? You mentioned things like regressions, forecasting models, and other algorithms earlier.
That's right. Each type of analytics relies on a specific set of tools and techniques. But it's crucial to select the right tool for the job. For example, if you're trying to predict a simple linear relationship between two variables like advertising spend and sales revenue, you might use a linear regression. However, if you're dealing with more complex nonlinear trends, you'd need a more sophisticated forecasting model. It all depends on the specific research question and the nature of the data.
It makes sense that you wouldn't use a hammer to tighten a screw. Okay, so now that we have a better grasp of those different types of analytics, I think it would be helpful to revisit the 6 core domains of the BDA cycle and see how they all fit together. You already explained the importance of identifying research questions and sourcing the right data, but can we dive a bit deeper into those first 2 domains?
Absolutely. Remember, it all begins with clearly defining those research questions. It's about pinpointing the specific business problem or opportunity you're trying to tackle. Without clear questions, your analysis is like a ship without a rudder. You might end up somewhere, but it's unlikely to be where you need to be.
So it's all about setting the stage for a successful analysis. And when it comes to sourcing data, what are some of the key things to keep in mind?
When sourcing data, it's essential to consider the type of analytics you'll be using. For example, if you're focusing on descriptive analytics to understand past performance, you'll likely need historical data from your company's internal databases. But if you're venturing into the realm of predictive analytics, you might need to incorporate external data sources like market trends or social media sentiment to get a broader perspective.
So depending on the type of analysis and the specific questions you're trying to answer, you might need to cast a wider net to find the most relevant data.
Exactly. It's not just about collecting data for the sake of collecting data. It's about being strategic and selecting the information that's most likely to reveal those valuable insights.
Once you've gathered and carefully curated your data, what's next in the BDA cycle?
That's where we move on to the exciting part, analyzing the data. This is where we roll up our sleeves and apply those statistical techniques and algorithms to unearth meaningful insights from the data.
And this is where those different types of analytics we discussed, descriptive, predictive, and prescriptive, come into play, right? The specific approach you take will influence the methods and tools you use.
That's right. If we're talking about descriptive analytics, we might use statistical measures like averages, percentages, and standard deviations to summarize the data. We might also explore probabilities, distributions, and sampling techniques to get a better understanding of the overall patterns and trends.
So it's about using those foundational statistical concepts to describe and summarize what the data is telling us. What about the techniques used in predictive analytics?
In predictive analytics, we're often dealing with techniques like regression analysis, which helps us understand the relationship between different variables and make predictions based on that relationship. We might also use forecasting models, which leverage historical data to project future trends and outcomes. And simulations and risk analysis techniques can help us assess potential future scenarios and understand the associated uncertainties.
It sounds like predictive analytics involves a whole toolkit of techniques to make sense of the past and anticipate the future. And finally, what about prescriptive analytics? What sorts of methods are used there?
When it comes to prescriptive analytics, we often turn to optimization techniques. These techniques help us identify the best course of action to achieve a specific goal, considering various constraints and limitations. Think of things like linear programming and nonlinear programming, which are used to solve complex optimization problems.
It's fascinating how each type of analytics has its own set of powerful tools to extract insights and guide decision-making. But once you've analyzed the data and uncovered those hidden patterns, what happens next?
That brings us to the next crucial domain in the BDA cycle, interpreting and reporting the results. It's not enough to simply crunch the numbers and generate a bunch of statistical output. We need to translate those findings into something meaningful and actionable.
So it's about taking those complex statistical results and turning them into a story that everyone can understand and use to make informed decisions.
Exactly. This often involves summarizing the key findings, highlighting the most important insights, and explaining the implications of the analysis in a way that's clear and concise. Data visualization also plays a crucial role here, helping to bring the data to life and make it easier for stakeholders to grasp the key takeaways. Charts, graphs, and other visuals can be incredibly effective tools for communicating complex information in a way that's both engaging and memorable.
Data visualization really is a powerful way to tell the story of the data. But what happens after you've interpreted the results and communicated those findings? What's the next step in the BDA cycle?
That's where we move from analysis to action. The next domain is all about using those results to influence business decision-making.
This is where those data-driven insights get translated into concrete actions that can impact the business, right?
Exactly. It's about turning insights into tangible results. This might involve developing recommendations, proposing solutions, or informing strategic decision-making.
So it's about collaborating with stakeholders, presenting those data-driven insights, and working together to develop strategies and plans based on the analysis.
Absolutely. It's about ensuring that those valuable insights don't just sit on a shelf collecting dust. They need to be translated into meaningful action that can drive the business forward.
And what about the final domain of the BDA cycle? What's involved in guiding organizational level strategy?
Guiding organizational level strategy is about cultivating a data-driven culture within the company. It's about moving beyond individual projects and embedding data-driven thinking into the very DNA of the organization.
So it's about creating a sustainable data strategy that can drive long-term success. It sounds like it requires a pretty significant shift in mindset for many companies.
It can be a big change, but it's essential for companies that want to thrive in today's data-rich world. Those that embrace data-driven decision-making tend to be more agile, innovative, and responsive to change.
So we've covered a lot of ground here, exploring the different types of analytics and diving deep into those 6 core domains of the BDA cycle. What are your thoughts on this exploration so far? What stands out to you as particularly important or surprising? You know, as we've been discussing sourcing data, it's made me realize there's a whole world of data out there beyond just what a company collects internally.
Right.
Can you talk a bit more about those different types of data sources and how analysts choose the right ones for their projects?
Yeah, that's a great observation. When we talk about sourcing data, it's not about grabbing every piece of information we can find.
Right.
It's about being strategic and selective,
Hmm.
choosing the data that's most relevant and reliable for answering our research questions. And you're right, there's a wealth of data sources out there, both internal and external to an organization.
So internal data is the information a company collects about its own operations, customers, and employees.
Exactly. Think of things like sales transactions, customer demographics, website, traffic inventory levels, or employee performance records. This data is often readily available and can offer valuable insights into a company's past performance and current trends.
Makes sense that companies would have a lot of data about their own activities. But what about external data? What are some examples of that, and why is it important?
External data is the information that exists outside a company's own walls. It can include things like market research reports, industry benchmarks, economic indicators, social media sentiment, weather patterns, or even competitor data.
Wow.
Bringing in these external sources can provide a broader context for analysis, helping companies understand the bigger picture and make more informed decisions.
So external data is like looking beyond your own backyard to see what's happening in the wider world. It sounds like a powerful way to gain a competitive edge. But with all this data available, both internal and external, it must be a challenge to manage it all effectively.
You're absolutely right. That's where data management comes into play. It's all about ensuring data is accurate, consistent, and accessible for analysis. This involves a range of processes from data cleaning and transformation to data integration and governance.
So data management is like the unsung hero of the BDA world, making sure the data is reliable and ready for analysis. It's like prepping all the ingredients before you start baking a cake. If you start with spoiled ingredients, no matter how good your recipe is, the cake won't turn out right.
That's a great analogy. Without proper data management, even the most sophisticated analytics techniques can produce misleading results. But once you have high-quality data that's well organized and accessible, you can really start to unlock those valuable insights. And that's where those 6 core domains of the BDA cycle come back into play.
Right. It all starts with those research questions that guide the entire process. Then you carefully source the data, making sure you have the right information to answer those questions. And once you have your data prepped and ready to go, it's time to analyze it using those different types of analytics we talked about, descriptive, predictive, and prescriptive, to uncover patterns, trends, and insights.
Exactly. And then it's about interpreting those results, translating them into actionable recommendations, and communicating them effectively to those who can make decisions. Remember, the goal is to turn data into action.
And ultimately, those insights can guide everything from day-to-day operations to long-term strategic planning, fostering a data-driven culture that can truly transform a business.
It's been great exploring the world of business data analytics with you today. We've covered a lot, from the historical roots of business intelligence to the sophisticated techniques and processes used in modern-day BDA.
I feel like we've only scratched the surface of this fascinating field, but I have a much better understanding of how data is being used to shape the future of business.
And remember, this is just the beginning of your data-driven journey. There's so much more to explore and discover.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of business data analytics, I want to leave our listeners with one final thought. As data becomes even more integrated into our lives, it's crucial to remember that data is a powerful tool that can be used for good or for bad. So I encourage all of you to think about the ethical implications of data, the potential biases that can exist within datasets, and the responsibility we all have to use data in a way that is fair, transparent, and beneficial to society. Keep learning, stay curious, and let's all strive to use data to make the world a better place.